Real progress toward any peace agreement now depends on Russia. That's according to the US State Department following talks between American and Ukrainian delegations. Officials say the two sides also agreed on a security framework and discussed the deterrence capabilities needed to support lasting peace.
Both parties agreed that real progress toward any agreement depends on Russia's readiness to show serious commitment to long-term peace, including steps toward de-escalation and cessation of killings.
US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff have released a statement on social media outlining the latest round of talks between the Ukrainian and American delegations. He says both sides reviewed the outcome of their recent US contacts with the Russian delegation and discussed possible steps that could help move closer to ending the war. Officials also agreed on the core outlines of the future security arrangements and examined the deterrence tools needed to ensure lasting peace once the fighting stops.
Today, the group had their sixth meeting over the past 2 weeks. Secretary Umerov reaffirmed that Ukraine's priority is securing a settlement that protects its independence and sovereignty, ensures the safety of Ukrainians, and provides a stable foundation for a prosperous democratic future. The participants discussed the results of recent meeting of the American side with the Russians and steps that could lead to ending this war. The American and Ukrainians also agreed on the framework of security arrangements and discussed necessary deterrence capabilities to sustain a lasting peace.
The statement released by the Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov following the talks mirrors the US version. Both sides are expected to reconvene for another round of negotiations on Saturday, December 6. Bloomberg reports that Donald Trump has directed the new U.S. national security strategy against America's allies rather than its adversaries. The document formalized the political rhetoric the current administration has been promoting publicly. The updated U.S. national security strategy under President Donald Trump delivers a sharp rebuke to Europe, underscoring a widened rift in transatlantic relations. The document breaks with the post-World War II order, warning that Europe faces a civilization decline driven by economic stagnation and political failures. It declares that the days when the United States carried the global order like Atlas are over, reflecting Trump's America's first approach and growing friction with NATO allies. The strategy barely mentions Russia's war against Ukraine and echoes familiar arguments about ending the idea of NATO as an ever-expanding alliance. On China, it calls on US partners in the region to boost defense spending and help deter any threat to Taiwan. Though non-binding, the strategy codifies the administration's often unconventional and confrontational rhetoric, from tariffs to open criticism of allies. Its tone toward Russia and China is notably softer than in 2017 version. It also criticizes US allies for failed China policy and stresses the need to rebalance economic relations, while acknowledging that Washington and its partners still lack a unified plan for the global south. The document highlights Taiwan deterrence as a priority and says US forces cannot and should not shoulder the burden alone. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is mentioned only briefly, with the strategy focusing instead on stabilizing European economies and expressing frustration at the slow pace of ending the war without placing blame on Moscow. The US wants Europe to take on nearly the entire NATO defense burden by 2027. Reuters reports, citing Pentagon officials, shifting NATO's defense burden onto Europe would drastically change how the US works with its key military partners. Reuters, citing sources, reports that the message was delivered this week during a Washington meeting between Pentagon officials overseeing NATO policy and several European delegations. European officials say the 2027 timeline is unrealistic. Pentagon representatives stressed that Washington is dissatisfied with Europe's pace in strengthening its defense capabilities since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Sources say US officials warned that if Europe fails to meet the 2027 targets, America could withdraw from certain NATO defense coordination mechanisms. The arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin will remain in place even if peace talks over Russia's war succeeded. The International Criminal Court has made it clear that its investigation into Russia's invasion of Ukraine cannot be paused or stopped by any diplomatic agreements. However, it could be postponed only by a decision of the UN Security Council, said Deputy Prosecutor Najat Shamim Khan.
The Security Council can provide an avenue for deferring or asking the court to defer a case where it feels that there is room for a peace agreement. That's a matter for the Security Council. It's a political consideration. It'll be for states to decide that. We would be on the receiving end of communication from the Security Council. But as far as we are concerned, unless there has been a deferral of that nature, if we have an ongoing investigation, then we will follow our own regulatory framework in the Rome Statute for the continuation of our investigations.
The ICC has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin and 5 others over war crimes in Ukraine. The Kremlin rejects the court jurisdiction and considers warrant invalid. On March 17, 2023, the Hague-based court named Putin as suspect for deporting Ukrainian children to Russia and committing other war crimes. He could be arrested in any of the 123 countries that have ratified the Rome Statute, including Brazil. Yet, when Putin visited Mongolia, also a signatory, on September 2, 2024, the country did not arrest him or hand him over to the ICC. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met with Belgium's Prime Minister, who has been blocking the use of frozen Russian assets to aid Ukraine. Von der Leyen shared details on the meeting on her social media account. On the evening of December 5th, she added that the leaders agreed, given the current geopolitical situation, timing is crucial.
We noted that financial support for Ukraine is of central importance for European security. We had a very constructive exchange on this matter. Belgium's particular situation regarding the use of the frozen Russian assets is undeniable and must be addressed in such a way that all European states bear the same risk. We agreed to continue our discussions with the aim of reaching a consensus at the European Council meeting on December 18th.
Belgium opposes using frozen Russian assets to provide reparation loan to Ukraine. The country, which holds most of the assets in the Euroclear depository, fears possible lawsuits from Moscow and is demanding security guarantees from other EU states. EU leaders are set to decide on the loan for Kyiv on December 18th during the European Council in Brussels. The funding is crucial for Ukraine to maintain financial stability following the war. But Belgium is not the only hurdle. According to Politico, Hungary has blocked a potential EU decision to issue Eurobonds to finance Ukraine, removing a backup plan in case frozen Russian assets cannot be used for the €165 billion loan. The European Commission wants EU countries to agree on supporting Ukraine's economy with a loan backed by frozen reserves of the Russian Central Bank. Politico reports that Eurobonds could have provided an alternative source of funding. However, two diplomats told journalists that Budapest rejected the idea of launching a joint debt issue backed by the EU's 7-year budget. That's all for now. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments below.